Buckle up, everyone, and welcome to Carpool Rugby League, a show where two rugby league tragics talk everything rugby league on your way to and from work. I'm Shano.
And I'm the chameleon. Hello.
Welcome aboard and on with the show. Now, but before we begin this show, Griff, I just want to say something and pass my condolences to the family of Ian Heads, who passed away. I suppose anyone who's read Rugby League Week in its day have probably read one of his articles. I love rugby league history. I'm a nut for it. I love reading about it, and he was probably the pinnacle of writing about rugby league history. He was a man who was he was part of the first Immortals concept, as it was back then. And look, as someone who loved reading his stuff, especially his stuff on rugby league history, I think he gave the rugby league world a lot. So not many people may have heard of him. I know these days he was 81.
I didn't realise it was that old.
No, neither did I. You know, when I heard he died, I thought, oh, geez, that's young. But no, look, it said he was 81, and I suppose it's all relative. But yeah, as someone who loved rugby league history and who loved reading his articles when he wrote for various newspapers and journals, it was yeah. I think it's fair to say that the rugby league world as a whole is a little bit less now that he's not a part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I was a devotee to Rugby League Week from the 1970s. My dad used to buy me Rugby League Week and Big League each week, which was sort of the highlight of my week. And I didn't read novels or anything like that, really. I just read Rugby League Week and Big League. That's what I was
We're
brought
cut
up,
from the
particularly
same
Rugby
cloth.
League Week.
Cut from the
Yeah,
same cloth, Griff.
yeah. So yeah, Valet.
Yeah,
And I believe he was made a Hall of Famer or something
he
like
was. He's a
that.
Hall of
Yeah,
Famer. Yep.
yeah.
And
So that's yeah, a great and obviously great that that happened before his passing as
yes,
well.
yes.
Sometimes some of these greats, in whatever walk of life, they're given sort of a posthumous award,
Yeah,
but fortunately, and I'm
yeah,
sure he would have appreciated that.
yeah, most definitely. And I think for some of the younger listeners out there, wouldn't understand that basically all your rugby league news come from uh, Big League and Rugby League Week. If you wanted to know anything, you had to read that to sort of get any insight. And if you were lucky, you'd find a newspaper somewhere. So it was the main way of getting rugby league news in its day. Last week, Griffo, another great round of rugby league kicked off on Thursday with Panthers winning 34-12. He must have been happy. That was a hell of a performance.
Yeah, I was happy. Obviously, they won, but I didn't take it with too. I won't say a grain of salt because it was a very good win, but it was, under the reality of Payne Haas being out,
Yep.
Adam Reynolds being out, and Reece Walsh injured early in the game. So, yes, very good win. And watching the replay, Penrith were on fire
They were.
for the early part of that game. They sort of clocked off early in the second half, but the quality of their attacking football, irrespective of who was lining up, they had 13 players in maroon, yellow, and white, and there was high quality rugby league there, which certainly was enjoyable to watch.
Yeah, they were electric. Warriors on Friday, first game, 18-10, beat the Raiders. I enjoyed watching that game. I thought it was a really entertaining game. The next game, I actually watched it in replay because was watching the South Sydney New South Wales Cup game. I I wish some people from Fox.
How many more luck there, Shane?
I did, yes. They played very well. I just wish the people
Okay.
from Fox actually watched the game, because talking up Lockie Ilias's game was a joke. He played solid football, but Jai Gray was the shining light in that match. Lockie Ilias started with a knock on and then kicked the ball out in the full at some stage. So I wouldn't say that was first grade quality, but anyway, that's what it was. It was a lot better than watching the 48-6 win by the Roosters over the Bunnies. They're in trouble, South Sydney. We might talk a little bit more about that as we come to them playing the Dogs this week. The Dogs, in saying that, had a 32-0 win over the Titans. Fairly dominant in their performance. I think the thing that would make their fans and everyone in Dogtown happy was that they kept the Titans to 0. And Titans didn't throw a lot, but I think for where the Dogs have been at, that's an important thing for them. Dragons 24 lost to the Cowboys 46. That was a fairly commanding win by the Cowboys in the end. For the Tigers fans, 32-6 win over the Sharks, which somewhat, when I was sort of watching the game and thinking to myself, this is going to be the Sharks team that's harder to pick than a broken nose this year. They're going to be the tipster's nightmare. I can see it now. The Eels on Sunday, 28-24 winners over the Seagulls.
High quality game, that one.
Very good quality game. That was. I don't want to take away from your grab, Griffo, and I hope I don't gazump you here. The most quality thing I saw on the weekend was Nathan Cleary setting up Tago for the try. The next best quality thing I saw was this game. I thought it was absolutely outstanding. And Parramatta, again, we'll go through the teams later. They're gonna have to find a way to win without their halfback. As will Penrith for the next month, but we'll talk about that when we get to the games. The Knights winning 14-12 over the Storm. There was a
bludger of a game.
That was. It was. I actually thought for a small moment of time there that I thought the Knights had buggered it. I thought with 5 to go, I thought they're going to find a way to lose this game. Basically fluffed around with the football in their own end with about 8 minutes to go. That's true. There were times where both sides invented new ways of losing. But look, you know what? If you'd said to the Knights, there's 2 points. Well, the Knights have a habit of beating the Storm early in the season. So
the Storm
they were horrible.
No, I'm not going to criticise Storm because they're missing their 3 best players.
Well, they can only do what they can do.
I won't say they're 3 best players, but 3 of their best: Hughes, Munster, and Big Nelson.
Yeah.
I tipped Newcastle simply because of the guys that were out.
Wow.
The fact that the Storm that were able to get in a position to win the game is a credit to the guys that were there, and probably may say more about Newcastle's proficiency at the moment. But the Knights got 2 points.
Yep.
They'll be happy.
They would be very happy. So the ladder looks like this after round 3. Cowboys undefeated on 6 points. We have the Roosters, Raiders, Panthers, Seagulls, Eels, Dolphins, Storm. That's the 8. They're all on 4. So are the Tigers, the Sharks. They're down at 10th on 4 points. The Warriors with 1 win, the Dogs with 1 win, the Knights with 1 win, the Broncos with 1 win, the Dragons with 1 win, 15th, Titans with 1 win, 16th, and finishing last for the first time since round 2 in 2010, officially at the end of the season, are the Rabbitohs.
Bad old days.
Yeah, well, the way they played the other night, I thought I was back in the 90s. That's how bad it was. So that's the that's the ladder as it stands. That's the ladder as it stands. I've got nothing more to say really. Interesting thing I thought of is that out of all the teams on 4, only the Sharks have a minus differential, which usually you see one team getting thumped. That goes to show that it's all been pretty close. Griffo, do you have a grab for this week?
I do, actually.
What is it?
Well, it is Nathan Cleary.
Yeah, sorry, I knew I'd gazumped you because he's outstanding.
Okay. His ball playing late in the first half just mesmerised the Broncos. In particular, as you mentioned, that the try to tango when Cleary had the ball going everywhere, this way and that way. The Broncos had no idea what was happening.
That was outstanding.
Yeah, he was outstanding.
Yeah.
I want to mention Api Coruscant as well, who equally mesmerised the Sharks. Those two guys. Cleary is the grab, but Api was right up there. I only watched the mini of the Tigers game. I was out Saturday night. I didn't know the score, and I got home. I thought I'd watch the mini, and I was quite surprised. But well done, Tigers. They've won 50% of their games this year. If they go through the season and win 50% of their games, I don't think there'd be too many Tigers supporters who think, well, gee, we've had a good year. So well done them. The quality of rugby league we're seeing from some teams is amazing.
Yes.
We're not seeing in too many games both teams at their best. I think closest to that would have been the Manly Seagulls and the Parramatta Eels, who produced a magnificent game of rugby league. But we're seeing some teams perform magnificently, and their opposition are a shambles. I think, particularly, the Rabbitohs, they were just horrible.
They're horrible.
The Gold Coast Titans are an embarrassment.
Yes.
It's one thing to be pumped by a big score to 0, but it's another thing when you're getting pumped by what essentially is most likely a team that will be vying for the bottom 4.
Yeah.
And they've been pumped by the Dragons and the Bulldogs in the 2 games they've played.
Yes.
I know they've had a couple of injuries, but now they've got Tino out for the season.
Yeah. Wow.
And it just looks like it's going to be a Gold Coast wooden spoon.
Look, it's true that, I suppose they've had a bye, which puts them on the 2 points. But they're horrible. Can I just talk about Nathan Cleary for a tick?
Certainly.
I'm reminded when he scored that try. I actually after the game, I watched it about 4 or 5 times. I thought it was absolutely outstanding, and it reminded me of I was looking at our downloads, and we sort of cracked. We've cracked a fair few downloads over our time. I think we cracked 10,000. We're definitely over 10,000 as a thing. So thank you to all your listeners. Yeah, that's brilliant. But
thank you.
One of the things that reminds me of, I remember when very early on in the podcast, I was told I didn't like Penrith, and I remember people saying, "Shane, you don't like Penrith," and it's like, it's not that I don't like Penrith. It was just one game where Penrith was playing the Tigers, and he scored a field goal in extra time, and he hit the field goal in extra time and won the game. And my call was, I thought he made numerous dud decisions during the game, which actually cost Penrith. Penrith could have won. And I said it on the podcast, and everyone said I hated Penrith. The only silver lining was that the Penrith staff said the same thing. That they said the same thing about Nathan Cleary. And Nathan Cleary basically we used to stay around after training and practice. And I was really interested in this, and I read that he would ask people to stay back and help him work on combinations and help him with his passing and help him with his play. And when he'd kick for the sideline, Luai would kick it back and help him with his kick. And you fast forward and looking at Penrith, him staying back for an hour and a half, because he asked so many people to help him, and because the Penrith players bought into him and said, yeah, of course we will, it just became the norm. And what you see as the dividends of that is 3 premierships, which is outstanding. But you see this total buy-in of what hard work can do for everyone around you. It's infectious. That's why I think he is a brilliant leader. And I think in a lot of the crap that goes on around Nathan Cleary, I think what people forget is he is a leader. And I think when you watch him play now and what he does now, it's the sum of all those extra hours of kicking, of working on combinations, of asking people for help, of us. It's that kind of brain he's used for his football, which has allowed him to be who he is today. And I thought that try, as soon as he set that try up, I was instantly taken back to that game. And I think, look at where the player has come from and what hard work has now produced. And that to me is the epitome of Penrith and why they are where they are today. I just think it's hats off, and it goes to show that a lot of football players talk about hard work. He was someone who got into trenches and really worked hard, and I think what we're seeing now, 3 premierships later, and in my mind, I'd love to see the team that's going to beat them this year. Is the way they play. He's out for a month. We'll talk about that a bit later. But yeah, I just thought, it instantly took me back to that episode and how, and how he responded to what the media was saying at the time, that rather than taking the hit, he actually grew from it. And I think that says a lot for a lot of young football players out there. Keep trying and keep giving it a go. Isaac Luke is another example of a guy who used to tackle the footy posts because he had nothing else to tackle. And you look at how hard he was in the end. He just worked at tackling, and he was a gun at it. Look, we're going to talk.
Nathan Cleary, Shane, and
yeah.
Interesting you say what you've just said, because I in the last week I've been listening to a podcast where he did an interview with Cooper and Matty Johns, and he actually said that he's not a natural ball player. That he's just worked on his.
He's worked
game.
at it.
Yeah,
it's true.
He feels he's a natural runner of the ball rather than natural ball player.
It was only that through certain people we know and that I found out that he used to stay behind and ask people for help and ask people to create connections, and that's buy-in. That's I'm not going to go home. I'm not going to hop in my car. We'll spend an extra hour or hour and a half hanging around. Before you know it, when half the team hangs around, that just becomes the norm, and it becomes training. And well, they've won 3 premierships, so I think a lot of what he does, is pretty cool. Look, I just want to talk a little bit, if I can. There's been I just want to talk about some signings at the moment, because I think that's something that we've been a little bit remissing. Panthers extended Taylor May on a 2-year contract extension. Sorry, he'll be at the club till the end of 2026. Isaac Tago, 3-year deal. I think that's 2 players, Griffo, you'd be very happy that the Penrith have locked up.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Those guys are among the form centres in the competition at the moment. And you'd have to think Tago is coming right into calculations for a Blue Blues jersey if he maintains the form, and also can stay free of injury.
Yep.
Taylor May has been, he's never played in the centres in the NRL until this year. So we've only known him as a winger, but he's been very, very good. And there was a lot of talk about him moving from the club. The great desire to link up with his brother Terrell, and possibly down the track, older brother Tyrone. But and there was a weird post he put out there, which seemed to indicate this would be his last year. But the next day, reading that he's signed for 2 years is very, very good, because unfortunately, we when I say we, the Panthers just seem to keep losing guys that you don't want to lose, but also not just that, but homegrown talent that has outgrown the salary cap.
Yep.
Which is another whole issue again. But very, very good to sign those two guys. They're still quite young. I'm thinking 21, 22 at most. So I think Tango and May are going to be the 3 and 4 for the Panthers. Again, if injury doesn't interfere, but they look good, and they certainly look good when they got the quality of guys inside them, finding space for them. But they run good lines, and they break tackles as well. So you can't ask for much more out of a 3 and 4 than to run good lines and bust tackles. And they're both pretty solid in defense as well. So important signings.
Yep. The Warriors, they've secured Luke Metcalf, who's sort of, I suppose, in the last couple of games been the playmaker somewhat for the Warriors. So he's
good.
He's extended till the end of 2026. I think when he came from the Sharks, you just wondered if he could, if he'd fit into the Warriors' way of doing things, and it seems like that has happened. Freddie Lussick, talking about the Warriors, he's got a 2-year deal, an extension, which he'll be at the Warriors to the end of 2026. Zach Fulton from Manly, he's been released. He's going to join the Bradford Bulls. Interestingly, that Bradford Bulls, I think a lot of us probably think they're a Super League team. They're not. They're actually in the second tier at the moment. They're not even part of the English Super League. They've been relegated, and the sort of language they're not doing too. They're doing some okay things, but not anything too great. He's been let go. Tago, 3-year deal, end of 2028 season. That's just phenomenal for Penrith. Bulldogs forward Max King, he's agreed to a new 2-year deal, so he'll be at the club to the end of the 2027 season. That will see him. That's 2027. He'll be almost 30 when he comes off that, so that'll be interesting. Of course, Daniel Fifita and Ted Navano, they also are there. So he was granted release by South Sydney. Of course, Daniel was. So Paul Turner's been released from the Dragons. He's off contract effective immediately. Looks like he's going to take a contract overseas. No one quite knows where yet. And this is an insane signing, really, for this young man. I'm not talking about the club. Sua Fa'alongo has signed a new deal, which will see him remain at Melbourne for the next 5 years. That's a great
vote of confidence in the young man.
That is a great signing. Great talent. They obviously look. When Craig Bellamy says I've seen talent, I'll look at it. I'll run with what Craig Bellamy says. So he's lit he's lit the world up somewhat in his small career. It'll be interesting to see how that grows, and I think he's at the right club to do so. We've got some football coming up this week, Griffo, so we better have a look how that looks and have a look at what round 4 has in store for us. And you know what, Griff? With there being a day off on Friday, Good Friday, I am salivating at the thought that I'll be able to sit down and watch the Roosters take on the Panthers at 8 o'clock on Thursday, and it's coming from Allianz Stadium. Team lists were announced today. Probably some ins and outs, some interesting ins and outs. Look, I think the big one. I think one team has a big in, and another team has a big out. The big in for the Roosters is Luke Keary's back. For them, a big out for Penrith is Nathan Cleary. Brad Schneider looks like he's got the number 7 on his back. Far be it from me to try and look at the intricacies of this game. Griffo, no doubt you're going to be there. Tell us what your thoughts of the game was on Thursday night.
Yeah, I'm going to make my first trip to the new Allianz Stadium.
You'll love it. It's a great stadium.
This Thursday. Be joined by my daughters. So make a night of it.
Fantastic.
So looking forward to that. Yeah, got the tickets before knew Nathan Cleary was out, but it is what it is.
Penrith just
it's a
massive loss. For some reason, Penrith were able to just play well, but when you look at what Cleary's done the first 3 rounds so far, big loss.
Yeah, I thought he was quiet against Melbourne. He was okay against Para, but last week he was back to his absolute best. I can't see the Panthers winning.
Yep.
As I look at the two 17s as they line up together, and that's not, it's not because I don't want them to win. Obviously, my heart wants to see them win. If they can pull off a win, it will really give them a huge boost. Because I do see the Roosters as, for mine, and as I'm not just saying it tonight. I said it before the season.
Yeah, we agree.
I sort of had them.
They're the best
team
beat on paper.
If you look at that backline, there is no backline that has the attacking arsenal that is the Roosters have. Tedesco, Tupou, Suoli'i, Manu, Dom Young, Keary, Walker.
Yeah.
There are points in each of those 7 players. It is, on paper, the best backline in the NRL. And obviously last week, I know Keary wasn't there, but Sandon Smith did a great job, and he's out injured this week. But they just shredded the South Sydney Rabbitohs.
Yeah.
And yes, the Rabbitohs have got some players still missing, but they
could have had Sattler. Bloody, I could name the 1970 bloody grand final winning. And then likewise, you could have said, South Sydney have Inglis, Burgess, Isaac. It wouldn't have mattered who there is an attitude problem at that club, which I'll talk about in the next game.
We'll get to that.
But yeah, the Roosters were on fire. And you know what? With the Roosters, I've watched them the last 3 weeks. And probably in their first game in the South game, when someone got the ball, you just didn't know what was going on. Were they going to run? Were they going to pass? Were they going to kick? It's just like they've got this ability to just worry you no matter what's going on. And I think, for me, I'm with you. I'm picking the the Roosters, I just think that they're. I'm only picking the Roosters because Cleary's out. I just think his kicking game could nullify a lot of what they do to get the ball back.
Yeah, certainly.
And I think
Um,
that's the only difference. I just think I think Penrith's forwards are going to have to work harder than the Roosters forwards, which will give the back line a lot more room to move, and hence why I think they're going to win. But yeah, it's
look, 2 to 5. They're probably nearly a foot taller than each of the
yes,
Panthers,
yes,
and they're faster.
yep,
Now, Trent Robinson is a smart coach. They are going to be absolutely peppering the wingers with high kicks, and Taruva and Toto they're quality players. Toto, arguably the best winger in the game, but he's given away massive amount in height to whether he's marking up Tupou or Young, and likewise Taruva. He's a very good leaper, but Young and Tupou are not just giraffes. They can actually jump. So there's no way that they're going to win 50% of high kicks. They'll be doing well to win a quarter of them.
yeah.
So I see that as a big area the Roosters have an advantage. If Penrith are going to be any chance in this game, they have to control possession, and had a few issues with that in the first 2 weeks, but they were pretty good last week. Cleary missing massive, because he could have put him in positions with his kicking game where they, as you say, could have nullified some of the advantages that the Roosters have. The Roosters are missing a few guys in the forwards in Lindsay Smith, and obviously Spencer Laniu is ruled out for a while. But it's a very strong pack when you've got Warrior-Hargreaves, Terrell May up front.
Probably another guy who's out for Penrith, Fisher Harris.
Yeah, a massive loss. I mean,
because the other thing is with this game, and we've gone on a bit, but that's fine because I think this is a really important game. The difference was Penrith could absolutely bash their forward pack and really just their defence win the game. Sometimes you can win through defence, and the way to do that would be to literally just bash the daylights out of them. Probably the one instigator of doing that would be Fisher Harris, and I think this is where, if there any chance of doing something like this, people like Smith and Liam Martin, they're probably got to be the leaders. Isaiah Yeo, he's clinical in everything he does, but they're the guys. They're got to be I think they're got to be the people to get, if they can get under the skin of the Roosters forwards and get the right response out of people like Hargreaves, and in some ways Victor Radley. Like they're a smart football team, Penrith. I think that's probably where the value is for Penrith. It's not Penrith's backline trying to run around them. It's okay. Let's just hit them hard, and I think that's where Penrith can have some value. It's going to be interesting then to see what the bench do for Penrith. Can you just you know more about this Penrith bench than I do, Griff? I think Crichton will play this match. I think the bench of Watson, White, Egan Butcher and Angus Crichton will probably be the 14, 15, 16, 17. Laurie, Eisenhuth, Henry and Geyer, can they come on and do a job?
Talk about the debut of Maverick Geyer. It's as a Penrith fan, it's quite exciting. Yeah, the son of Mark Geyer, the original MG.
Yeah,
he's been waiting in the wings for quite a few years, and now he gets his chance. I've not seen a lot of him, to be honest, but it's exciting. I thought he might have possibly got a go last week, but they held him back. And then with this injury to Scott Sorensen, that opened up, Luke Garner going into the starting lineup and Geyer coming onto the bench. So that'll be interesting. Liam Henry, He's a hard worker. Dane Laurie's got a little bit of magic about him. We haven't seen much of him in the game so far. He's been on the bench for most of both of the games. I didn't think he got on for the first game, but I had a look and apparently he played a minute, but I didn't see it. But that's what officially the stats say, so I don't know what happened there. Eisenhuth's solid. The Roosters bench, you'd have to say each of those four players really adds something when they come on. Connor Watson's very skillful, quick. He'll give Brandon Smith a rest. Nafahu White's been outstanding this year off the bench. Egan Butcher gets his first chance. He's a quality player. And, of course, Crichton's he's a New South Wales and Australian player of note, and he did come on last week. So there's no let-up with these Roosters. They're just an amazing, talented squad. And by far, well, actually, I shouldn't say by far, but they are, on paper, the best squad in the NRL. Games aren't won on paper, seasons aren't won on paper, but you'd rather, when you look at paper and you see the names that these guys have got, and you think of the couple of guys that are out as well, I think the team that beats them on grand final day will be the Premiers. I can't see a Penrith victory on Thursday as much as I want to. But you never know. They'll believe they can win. That's one thing I'm sure of. And they've won games without Nathan Cleary before. Big moment for Brad Schneider. He has NRL experience with the Raiders. He went over and did some really good things in the Super League. And he's got a good kicking game. He's going to need to have a good kicking game. Good luck to him. And I want to see Penrith win, but I'll be honest and say when I do my tips this week, it will be Roosters.
Yes, I've got the Roosters too, but if you look at my tipping lately, that does not mean much. At 4 o'clock on Good Friday, actually 4:05 to be exact, the South Sydney Rabbitohs take on the Canterbury Bankstown Bulldogs. I suppose the big in for the Dogs is that Addo-Carr is named on an extended bench. Interesting to see what happens there. South Sydney, well, yeah. Tui Thompson and Lachlan Ilias on the extended bench with Shaq. Peter Mamazelos, he'll get named on the extension bench but won't play. Can I just add something actually for our listeners? If you haven't gotten onto it, depending on how you're seated financially, $50 a year is New South Wales Rugby League TV. Get you every New South Wales Cup game. You can watch not Harold Match. You can watch SG Ball. You can watch all these other games. I got it for the last week's game because I couldn't stream it. Actually, I flicked through it during the week. If you're a footy fan, and $50 a year seems like you can afford that. It's worth the watch. I just thought I'd add that in as I'm talking about half that team that will not play first grade. Look, South Sydney play the Dogs. South Sydney at the moment, it's becoming apparent that behind closed doors they are an ever-growing shambles of a rugby league club. I've got grave concerns about this game because there's a small part of me that says they probably won't turn up for it. This is not... We talk about teams on paper. I think we're at the point now where someone asked me last year, at the end of last year, what's the problem with South Sydney? And I said, I'm going to fast forward and talk about 2024. And when your best centre's playing fullback and your best half is playing centre and you're losing games, you have a problem. You should be playing players where there's the need. And I think that's where South are at. It's I don't know what more you can say, but they're a team that is significantly playing under their worth. They clearly don't want to play for something or someone, and no amount of hugging on the bloody practice pitch is going to prove that. Their coach is 0-3, could be 0-4. It seems like the board have come out and said that he's got till round 6 to turn this team around. Even at round 6, that's still a 50% win-loss ratio. It's better than what they've got now. But, Dogs this week, Warriors next week, and then they've got the Sharks. There's a small part of me that says if they haven't won those 3 games, then I think that's curtains. It already is, I think, for the top 8 for South, but I think it's curtains for some people involved. Look, I'm picking South Sydney because they're the team I go for. They're playing at home. I've got no real reason to tip them other than there's some big name players that have to start firing. Their forward pack have to hold the ball. Jeez, they couldn't catch a cold at the moment. Some of their forward pack. I feel for certain players, and there's some players in the side that just turn up and they just give 110% week in, week out. Cam Murray's one of them. Then when he makes a mistake, it's like all these daggers are out. I think there's some people in their back line who need a significant wake up call. And if it was one Shane Watson picking the side, Latrell Mitchell would not be fullback this week. Jai Gray would be fullback. He would be number 4. Cody Walker would be New South Wales Cup, and Jack Whiten would be playing number 6. Lachlan Ilias would not be in the side because he didn't do enough last week to prove he should be there. Jai Gray did. Totola, I think I'd actually probably put Damien Cook back to New South Wales Cup and give Mamazelos a run. Tom Burgess would be there. Keon Kolomatangi, I'd just love to pull him aside and show him a mirror to just see how big he is, because whilst his tackling sometimes is great, and he just doesn't find those post-contact meters anymore. Jacob Host, I think he, every now and then, the Dragons version of Host comes out, which is not great. Tallis Duncan is a guy who's on the bench. Our bench this week is Cheekham Duncan, Shakai Mitchell and Moali. I don't mind that as a backline. I actually wouldn't mind seeing Isaac Thompson replacing Milne. That's just my personal opinion. Tallis Duncan is another one who gets put on this football team and more or less gets thrown in the middle of the park and told to be Cam Murray. He should be on an edge. He's a very fast footballer. I think he'd be better suited to the edge in this side. I think he'll work well with Murray. But look, when I look at the Bulldogs would be buoyed by what they did last week. They've got the players to win this game. The kicking game of Matt Burton, I think, is the key. With Drew Hutchinson running the side, their forward pack has to turn up. I think if their forward pack can contain South Sydney will drop enough ball to give them a chance. So it's just about really, if they hold the ball and do what they need to do, the Dogs are right in this. I'm tipping South Sydney, and that's enough said. But I think if their coach is, if South Sydney is still entertaining the fact that Jason Demetriou is the future of coaching for them by round 6, my membership's not only going to be a donation for this year, but I think for a couple of years to come.
Okay.
That's me done.
Yeah, I think you've been very subdued.
Yeah, I'm over ranting.
Yeah. I mean, you've been there and you've done that.
Yeah.
You didn't win at the comp, so.
No.
I do. Like, I was watching the game last week, and I was thinking of you and our captain Graham, particularly yourself, Shano, and thinking
Ugh.
you must be really struggling.
I've still got my Rabbitohs gear. I've got my Rabbitohs shorts on now. Walked around the streets today.
Yeah,
Some guy just pat me on the back and said, "Good luck."
yeah.
Yeah.
Look, the reality, if you want to, you want to be glass half full. The fact is they've lost against three of
Yeah.
the
Yes, that's
competition's
right.
best teams. They got walloped last week. In the first 2 weeks on the scoreboard, they weren't walloped, but the scoreboard didn't really reflect the difference between
No.
when they played both the Broncos and also the Sea Eagles. This team is chock full of talent. Unfortunately, I can only agree with some of pretty much all the things you said actually, but I do believe their fullback is a hugely talented footballer
Massive.
who, unfortunately, his ego just gets away from him and works to the detriment of the team he's representing.
Can I say, Griffo, on that, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think he is the worst ball returner in rugby league. And
Well, he just doesn't do it; just passes the ball
as a
to the wing.
fullback, that is your bread and butter. The way you stop your forwards from fatiguing is you run the ball back as hard and as fast and as far as you can, and with your winger, work so that they don't have to come back. By tackle 2, you should be meeting them. And that stops them having to run twice as much in the game. South doesn't do that. That's why the Roosters were so good. That's why Penrith's so good. Last week, that was Dogs. Taft brought the ball back. But any forward just stood still. And by tackle 3, they could run the ball because the backs had met them. He is the worst ball returner in the NRL. I'm sure
You
there's a
can't argue
statistic.
that. Like,
There's got to be a statistic that proves it. But just by gut feel, he doesn't run the ball back.
as I said, his talent
talented.
is immense.
Yes.
His effort. Well, I think he's lazy. I might be wrong, but it appears as though he is. He doesn't challenge for a lot of balls. If there was a try scored by the Roosters last week where he just didn't get there, and this happens virtually every week. The good halfbacks, the good kickers, know where to put the ball and know that he's not going to put in as much effort in chasing as a Clint Gutherson or a Dylan Edwards or a James Tedesco or pretty much any other fullback in the competition.
Mm-hmm.
It appears as though he's lazy. Now, I don't know if that's the case or not, but that's how it appears. He doesn't appear to be as fit as other NRL players. Now, again, I'm not an expert, but there was an interesting, before the game last week, they had some shots in the dressing room, and some of them you couldn't see their faces, but I saw bodies that didn't look like professional sportsmen.
I agree.
There were stomachs popping out of at least 3 guys. Some of them I didn't know who they were because I said I couldn't see the face on some of them, but they don't look as fit to me as other NRL teams.
Yep.
If I'm looking at a professional rugby league player,
agree with you.
He is an athlete in peak body shape.
I think I said that last year. I said they're the most unfit rugby league team.
They don't look to be fit.
No,
most of them. Oh no, actually, no. I can't say most of them.
But this is what got Burgess in trouble and why he had to leave because he brought all this stuff to light.
Yeah,
look, I had a.
Would they be in the predicament they are now if he was the coach? I don't think
Well,
so.
have a look at him in Warrington. They're on top of the table.
Yeah. I mean, he's obviously a hard man who has expectations that players will match or at least make an effort to be what he was in terms of dedication, in terms of commitment, in terms of giving 100% everything you've got.
Yeah.
And I don't think some of these guys, that don't sit well with them. And oh gosh, if I was a South supporter, I would have been ropeable.
I was. I can't believe. Well, I mean, I can't believe he's over there coaching and not here.
But it shouldn't have been able to happen.
No.
It seems as though they pander to the needs, I guess, or I don't know, needs or wants, or just try and keep a couple of their players happy. And it's funny, Latrell, you always hear commentators and journalists talk about, he seems happy. He's got a smile on his face. Who gives a rat's if he's happy?
Yeah.
You want to win games.
Yeah, well,
why has he got to appear happy?
The friggin' rant on Triple M the other day was great. Look,
this is the ego. This is the ego.
Yeah,
it's more important than the team and all the NRL for that matter.
I had a somewhat heated discussion. What was it? No, it was online, but with someone. And I said, okay, say we never signed Latrell Mitchell. And Blake Taft was South Sydney's fullback for the last 3 years. Would we be in any worse position than we are now? And the answer is no. Which means what? He's brought nothing to the club. On the truck ton of money, bought nothing. That's what that tells me. Blake Taft was South Sydney's fullback from the moment he arrived. Say he never arrived, but Blake Taft was our fullback. We may not have been in the grand final against Penrith, in which I disagree because I thought Blake Taft's that year was absolutely outstanding.
Well, Latrell missed the back part of that.
Yeah,
season.
That's right. He did very well to get us there, and I think that was more Wayne Bennett than anyone. Because you're not going to tell Wayne Bennett where to go. I would say that South Sydney would be in no worse position than they are now. Well, you can't get any worse than last, but you know what I mean. Which tells me he's added nothing. And yet, a young guy who could have slotted into that role, changed things up, was told by the current coaching establishment, and I've heard on some authority that one of the things that really frustrated Sam was the fact that Latrell was fullback and Blake Taft got let go. Was another thing that he frustrated him, I should say. And, you look at, he's gone to another club. Now, I hope he flourishes because he's a great young talent. Like, I don't want ill of him, but, really it's been at the expense of someone who's added no value to the club. He's played a few good games here and there, but we haven't won a premiership. We haven't won a minor premiership. We haven't, we've gone from what was at the start of last year one of the most venomous attacking teams in rugby league and one of the most hard-hitting defensive sides to just marshmallows who drop the ball. Anyway, I'm going South. Who are you going, Griff?
I'm giving them a chance this week. I'm going on paper here.
Yeah.
I'm looking at the two teams. I was quite impressed with the Bulldogs last week, in particular with the Army kicker who had his best game since leaving the Panthers. He was back to his absolute best.
Yeah, he was very
good. He terrorized Tanner Boyd. It's rare that I've seen a guy just absolutely become unable to know what to do as a result of another player.
Yeah.
But Tanner Boyd, he had a nightmare. And it was Viliami Kikau who terrorized him. If Kikau can produce that again, I mean, the names, they've got names in this team. Crichton, Burton, Connor Tracy, you mentioned Taff. Preston's a very good player. But I think if South can it's a big if, but if they can play to their names and their reputations, they win this game. I will tip them, but if they lose this week, I'm going to find it hard to tip them in the future. Cody Walker, you mentioned if you were there, he'd be in reserve grade. He's done nothing this year.
Yeah.
It's interesting. He's an immensely skillful player. Question is he past his prime? He's not a young footballer by any stretch. They signed him to a reasonably extensive contract at 31, 32 years of age. I'm not sure what he was, but they didn't offer Reynolds the same. I think it was 3-year deal. Reynolds equal age or maybe younger at the time. They backed Cody Walker. And, he's been a great player for them. He's won multiple games for them. Are those days over? That's the question. At the moment, you'd have to think yes, but
he's last.
We know what he can do. Yeah. It's question is, we know what he has done. Can he continue to do that? What is he? 34? Yeah, now.
Yeah, his last good game was for New South Wales. Really?
Yeah. Well, he was the man of the match.
Yeah, and I think, look, yeah, it is what it is. South Sydney, pretty much. I think there's something now. I think there's something like now. 2 of their last 12.
Right.
That's
this is a must win.
That's what That's what the coach is looking at. Yeah. Look, at Suncorp Stadium at 8:00 is going to be a very interesting game. I think Queensland derby of the Broncos versus the Cowboys on at 8:00. Some ins for the Broncos. Adam Reynolds is in. Interestingly, Corey Oates named at 17 on the bench. The key out for them is Reece Walsh. I think we haven't really touched on it. I wasn't aware that rugby league players had a duty of care where to put their head. Considering he didn't lead with the head, I thought that was an absolutely ridiculous penalty. I have no idea where in rugby league that is, and for Penrith to get penalised, I thought that was as a rugby league accident, and accidents happen in rugby league. I think a lot's been probably written this week about that, and they can lie there, but sadly he's going to be out for a little while, but in no way, shape or form was there any malice in that, and that neither should a player going in for a tackle. If he led with the head, I get it, but he didn't lead with the head. It was a rugby league accident. So as far as duty of care goes, I thought he had his duty of care by putting everything where it needed to be. It was just a head clash.
Shane, can I take that a step further?
Yeah, sure. Of course you can.
It was interesting that I think Kevin Walters may have used the term duty of care or something similar. And
well, the referee used it.
Baffled. Yeah, okay. But Walters on the night said, play on. He came out the next day and said something different.
I think because the referee's boss told him to.
Was critical of.
I think the NRL tapped him on the shoulder and said, "Can you help us out here, Kev?"
Yeah. Well, it was interesting that he took it up because the Broncos were going to put Reece Walsh back on the field.
There is no way
duty of care.
There is no way that man could have. And you know what?
Well,
when I saw
the
him,
only reason he didn't go back on is because he couldn't see the ball.
When I saw him,
the ball and he couldn't see it.
They
wanted to put him back on.
When I saw him,
talk about a duty of care.
When I saw him in his jersey, I'm like, get him to the hospital. The guy had to spend 17 hours on a bus because he couldn't fly. Get him to the hospital. Get him some proper care. I'm not saying the doctors aren't providing proper care. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is a hospital has everything that he needed right there and then to make this injury less of an injury than what it is. When I saw him in his body...
But it was amazing that they were critical
Oh,
and they were willing to
that
put him back into the
there is
game.
no way. He should have
Fractured
been.
cheekbone,
He should have been
eye
in that
socket.
ambo. I'm telling you now. When you saw that clash and you saw the gash and you saw the way it instantly blew up, that guy should have been, by the 80th minute, that guy should have been in the hospital getting specialist care to ensure that any further injury didn't take place. The thought, when he was still in his jersey, I shook my head. I, I, I don't get what the referee said about duty of care. I think that's ridiculous. But, I think if you lead with, he didn't lead with the head, so I don't know what he was talking about there. And if you
He
did,
was critical of May. Was he critical of his own players? Patrick Carrigan with a hip drop that put Hastings out for months.
I just think it was
Payne
silly.
Haas with a hip drop
Yeah.
that put Cleary out for. He missed the Australian games at the end of last year. He's not going to criticise his own players.
No.
I think, unfortunately, Kevin Walters,
I'd take a lot with.
Was a great player, but his mouth.
Look, can I just say,
a lot of crap comes out of his mouth.
A lot of what Kevy says, I take with a grain of salt. I'm more worried about what the referee said with duty of care. I thought what the referee said was absolutely bizarre, but anyway, that's the way it was.
That came from the. I think that came from the bunker.
Well, whoever. The referee should have said, "What are you talking about? Like, do you want a guy to drop his head, and then you got a guy off with a neck injury for no other reason than he dropped his head in an unsafe position?" I think it's stupid. Anyway,
the game, I said to my mates, it's either no penalty, or if you're going to penalise him, he's got to go to the bin.
100%. That's exactly what I said when I watched it, and it's exactly what I said. And I thought they missed on both occasions there. For the Cowboys, now that we've gone through that, Zach Laybutt is in at centre this week. He's an in for them. They've been playing some exceptionally good football.
Mixed with some poor football.
With incidents of poor football. I think
in the same game.
I think that the difference is they're finding ways to grab the 2 points. Can I say, I think in this game, if Reece Walsh was playing, I think my decision might be different. I think Adam Reynolds' kicking game is going to trouble the Cowboys. They're not going to have the easy ride they have over the last few weeks. I think their bench is pretty strong, which is why I'm going for the Cowboys just. Usually if I'm flipping a coin, I'll go the home team. I think in this game, for me, I just think that it's going to be their edges which may come up the goods. I think, not that I don't think Staggs or Cobbo are capable. I just think that their edge forwards are going to just keep running at them, popping the ball away. Patrick Carrigan's going to be massive in this game. There's a big part of me that says this could be golden point game. And if Adam Reynolds can kick the ball well, I've talked myself out of each team. I've got the Cowboys and I'm now talking myself out of them. I've changed my tip on this 5 times. I'm saying Cowboys, but that could change at the end of this podcast. Griff, what do you think?
I'm not changing my tip. I'm convinced Cowboys win this game.
Yeah.
My tipping's been okay. It hasn't been great, but I've banked the Cowboys every week. 2 weeks I've had them as my knockout. The only reason I didn't have them the other week because I couldn't, because you can't go the same team 2 weeks in a row. But the Cowboys are on top of their only undefeated team. Now, I'll temper that by saying they haven't played any of the top sides yet. I think they beat the Dragons. The Dragons should have won that game. They were 18-4 up, and then Faitula Mariner drops the ball over the line, which would have put them significantly up. Now, they may still have won, but they ended up winning by a long way. They got a lot of guns to fire. I think they got too many guns for the Broncos. The Broncos have a forward pack there that I don't rate as it is. I know they're missing some key men in the forwards. The Cowboys are missing the balloon, but it's still a very strong forward pack. And I think while the Broncos have got plenty of bullets to fire in the back line, and obviously Reynolds is a key in for them. As you said, they're missing Reece Walsh. The Cowboys have Drinkwater, they have Valentine Holmes, they have Tom Dearden, they have Taulungi. They've got points in them, and I think they'll get more points than the Broncos. I'm different to you, Shano, and I might be wrong, but I think they win this reasonably easily.
Okay, cool. Either way, I'm just hoping for a good Friday, Good Friday match at 8 p.m. at 5:30 on. Actually, that's. I'll start that again. At 5:30 on Saturday, the 30th of March, there's the Dragons up against the Seagulls. This is probably a match where Manly would be looking to bounce back from. I suppose a key in for them. Someone on the extended bench, a guy that gets named a bit, Brad Parker. Good old Hank Scorpio. It'd be interesting to see what they do with that there. Aaron Wood's also on the extended bench. But in saying that, I can't see them changing the side in any way, shape, or form. Ben Murdoch-Masila is out for the Dragons. Francis Molo, he is in the side. He's one of the bookends. Sele is on the bench. Look, I think that Manly have shown. I think Manly have shown this year that they're actually here to play rugby league this in 2024. The way they're using and the way Tom Trbojevic is roaming and the way they're using him is just outstanding. They've been playing some very, very good football. Last week, one would argue that Power won it. Another fan would argue that Manly threw it away. Either way, I just think they've got too much talent across the park for the Dragons. The Dragons do have some surprise packets. Tyrell Sloan playing some good football. Ben Hunt, as always, just there doing his thing. Francis Molo is going to add a bit of punch up front with Leilua Sua and Tom Eisenhuth in lock, who I think big fan of his on Carpool. I just think the talent across the board from 1 to 17, the Seagulls will just have it over the Dragons. I've got the Seagulls winning, and they're going to probably win this pretty well. Griff?
Yeah, I agree. The Dragons have shown some really good stuff in attack, but not in the round 2. I think they got beaten. Big loss to I think it was the Dolphins. And I don't know if they actually scored a point. But Manly, they got beat last week, but they certainly weren't disgraced. They're a team that I do rate highly, and I believe they're going to challenge for the top 4. I think they make the 8 for sure. Again, injuries can change things. I still don't understand why Jackson Bowler keeps getting picked. He just makes mistakes. He made some horrible ones last week.
Yeah.
And in a game that went down to 4 points, well, I don't know. I'm sure they've got someone more reliable. And I think the man you mentioned,
yep,
Brad Parker. I know they want to play Garrick in the centres, but I'd have Parker or Tommy Talau in that 17, irrespective of who you want to play on the wing. Not Brad Parker on the wing, but Garrick's a quality winger. Anyway, they will.
The other thing with Garrick is he's there because he turns 4 into 6.
Yeah,
He's a great
I'm not.
football player.
It's just a
Great
matter
football
of where
player.
he plays. It doesn't,
Yeah,
he's in the 13. It's just
yeah.
which
I'm with
jersey you're
you.
going to give him.
I'm with you. But then again,
Personally, I think the team is better off with him on the wing and someone coming in at centre. I just Barlow makes mistakes.
yeah.
He made mistakes for South. He was
Roosters.
a little better at the Roosters,
I
but
thought his nail in the coffin was at Las Vegas, where I'm just trying to think who it was that ran around him. South Sydney winger. It wasn't. I was trying to think who's playing. It was playing wing. Anyway, he was just out of position, and tried to cover. And it was one of the easiest tries. And you just think,
uh,
mate, you defend properly. You grab him every day of the week.
yeah,
Anyway,
I just don't understand it. I mean, I'm being highly critical of the guy, and not for the first time. I just don't think he's an NRL player. I mean,
yep,
he's a weakness, and teams target weaknesses. And there's a few other teams that have got guys that I have a similar opinion of. Manly were attacking them last week at the start of the game, and they stopped going to Harper's side of the field. I don't know why, but they were having success, and then they stopped doing it. But look, they beat the Dragons.
yeah.
I haven't seen all the games yet, but there's a strong chance, because I'm still in the knockout competitions. There's a strong chance I'm going Eagles for that this week.
Okay. At 7:35 on Saturday, the Gold Coast Titans take on the Dolphins. I like to call them Redcliffe. I hate the fact I don't have a name. But anyway.
Happy to call them Redcliffe.
Look, I suppose key ins, a big one to talk about is that David Fafita of some kind. He's named as a replace. He's number 18. Interesting to see whether he comes into the side or not. Campbell is in at fullback. He's in the side. Stimson's on the interchange in 17. Jojo Fafita on extended bench. Big one for them is Big Tino. The fact he's out, I actually put their ability to win any game this year in total jeopardy. That's where I'm at with them. I just think that he is such a massive part, and we talked about that at the start of the year. Dolphins. Jared Wallace is out. Look, I look at this game, Griffo, and with not a lot to add other than the fact that I think here you're going to have the Titans are just, if we talk about South Sydney being horrible, I think the Titans are just as.
They're worse.
They are worse. And I think that the Dolphins, at this point in time, are a better football side than them. I've got the Dolphins winning. I look at the Titans. I look at the Titans team, and outside there's some selection. There's some selections I go, okay, why? And other ones I go, well, why him there? And then I just look at it and I go, look, if Fafita's not going to get up into this team this week, Sam Verrills, he's on the interchange bench in number 14. I just think that, I'd just chuck him in the starting lineup somewhere.
He made some mistakes last week.
Yeah, I know. It's just that's the problem at the moment, is that, I just can't see anything in the Titans which gives me the Dolphins win. I just think that by about halfway through, 30 minutes into the first half, I think their forward pack's going to get some traction, and it's just going to be, I think it's just going to be the hammer through the middle, and just running it wide to Jermaine Asako. I think Herbie Farnworth, he'll have a bit of a day out when you look at who he's up against, and I think that even the forward pack, unless I just see everything for the Dolphins winning this week.
Yeah, I agree. if I'd not seen, the previous games, and if this was round one and these two teams lined up as they do, I'd probably actually back the Titans. But it's not. The Titans have been pumped by, I think it was the Dragons in week one and the Bulldogs in week three, and they had the bye. Now, both of those teams, I had the Dragons before the season kicked off as spooned. I don't now because they've been replaced by the Titans. They were horrible last week. Tanner Boyd had one of the, he was spooked by Kickow, as I mentioned earlier. Did you see the game, Shane?
Yeah, it was. I did see the game. I saw it as a replay. He was horrible. Look,
he lost his confidence once Kickow had that charge down try, and then it just terrorized him. And there were times when he didn't know what to do.
And the thing is, this is where when that charge down occurred, I just thought, look, Kieran Foran will take over, and it was nowhere.
Yeah.
It was as if
he's another guy that might have passed his use by date. Possibly,
it was like as if he didn't want the ball.
He's been a great player for him.
He just didn't want the ball. He wasn't even there to catch. There was a set of six, and Tanner Boyd put in a pretty poor kick. Kieran Foran, they showed it where he kicked it. Kieran Foran was 3 players wide, seagulling.
Yep.
So it's not as if it was an option. He was just out there. He wasn't even like the 3 players were in front of him. So it would have taken this massive cutout pass even just to get the ball near him, which was on the 5th with that kind of pressure silly.
Yeah.
Their forwards are, look, they don't provide, and they're so shallow. The way that Chris Randall passes the ball, it's really shallow football. So it just gives the opposition time to just bombard you.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. They sacked their coach last year, and I couldn't blame them. They were, their defense was dreadful. Unfortunately, the defense is still dreadful, but they've got no attack. I think they've scored 1 try in 2 games or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't rate the Dolphins, but I do think they win this week. It would be a massive turnaround needed from the Titans. It's a big challenge for them, and that's I guess Hasler obviously would be doing that, challenge them to show what they have. He's been very, very supportive of Boyd and keeping him in the team. I thought Weaver would have been there, but anyway, I think we've talked too much about this game. It's Dolphins for both of us, and we move on.
Yes, most definitely. Okay. Oh. All right. On Sunday at 4:05, the Warriors will take on the Newcastle Knights. This is in Go Media Stadium in Auckland. That's 4:05 Eastern Standard Time. Daylight savings over. It is over by then, isn't it?
I think so. I think it wraps up this
yes.
weekend. Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
Usually on a Saturday night that.
Yep, that's the one.
Is added or disappears.
In for the Warriors. In for the Warriors. Adam Pompey, he's in at centre.
Pompey's back.
Yeah, Pompey's back.
Yeah.
Dylan Walker is in on the extended bench. I think he's number 17. Wade Egan, he's in at hooker.
I thought he was going to be there last week.
Yep.
He is back.
He is back. Someone who's
big. You're going to talk about it now. I'll let you go.
What's that? Oh no, Tamari Martin. I was going to say he's.
Oh no, it wasn't. No,
who are you going to talk about?
Murata Nuakore. I think
Nuakore. Yes,
that is a massive in.
He was my next. Next one. Yeah, massive in. On the interchange bench for them, I think he actually. The bench. It's funny. I don't. If this is the way it finishes, Lasik, Nuakore, Afoa, and Walker. That's a pretty formidable. That's
good.
That's a good bench. That's a very good bench. And RTS in number 1. as well.
Yeah, interesting.
For the Newcastle Knights, I suppose Jackson Hastings is listed as in, but he's on the
So
absolute.
I don't consider it an in unless they're in the 17.
Yeah,
I
I'm
think
the same. That's absolutely on an extended bench. That's more. That's more a. That's more. Yeah, I think that's more a tidbit than anything. Leo Thompson is out for the Knights.
it's a loss.
That is a big loss for them, and I think that's why in New Zealand I'm going the Warriors this week. I look at the Warriors and I just think I look at this team. Um, the Knights are a bit of an enigma at the moment. They'll do a set of six that's absolutely clinical and to the book, and you just go, wow, hang on. If you could bottle that and produce it every time, it'd be brilliant. But it just doesn't seem to happen. I look at New Zealand. In New Zealand, this is a flip a coin game for me. I want to see a lot out of Kalen Ponga this week. I think it's time for him to start searching for the ball. I thought Bradman Best at times at the start of this season has shown some things that sort of I think justify why he was at one stage of blue. Um, their halves really worry me. I just don't see how they fit and how they interlock with the rest of the team. Society Feedy brothers at the forward pack with Frizzell, Pierce, Paul, and Elliott, Crossland in a hooker. I think that's strong. I think that they're going to have to be this week. For me, I just look at Luke Metcalf at the moment. I think he's actually the linchpin. I think he's running the team. Their forward pack have been doing well. I look at their bench, and if that's their bench, 14, 15, 16, 17, as we mentioned before, Lassie, Nikore, Afoa, and Walker, I just look at them and go, that's got it for me. I'm not going to be as arrogant to say I think the Warriors win well. I think they win. I just think that they're just going to be far too strong for the Knights, and I think late with 20 minutes to go, depending on what happens, this could be a bit of a blowout for the Warriors. What do you reckon?
Yeah, I can't disagree. They both had their first wins last week, but they're quite different. The Warriors, even though they lost the first two games, they haven't been in bad form. I think Newcastle's form's been poor. I think they're even he's a winger, Dom Young, but I think they're really missing him. He was really an option for them to score points. Who's not there anymore. They hung on just in a game that they should have won when they led by that much. They should have won reasonably easy against a way understrength Storm, and I think they lose this week. I'm very confident in Warriors.
At 6:15 on 6:15 on Sunday, we have the Raiders versus the Sharks. Canberra Raiders versus Sharks. Point bets paid in Sydney. I suppose Finucane, Hunt, and Toby Rudolph are all out for the Sharks. Albert Hopewadi's out for the Raiders. Jordan Rapana milestone game coming up. I'm pretty sure it's a milestone game. I can't think of what one it is. I want to say 300, but I don't know if he's played that many.
He went to Mormon Mission at one stage.
Yeah,
maybe
it's 250. I'm 90% sure. I'll do a bit of homework on that quickly, and we'll see.
He started back in the Titans originally.
Yeah. Yes. Either way, looking at these teams, for me, looking at these teams, I think it's going to be an interesting game of football. I don't know if it's. I don't know what quality. You can never really predict what quality you're sometimes going to get out of these two teams.
That's true.
I think the Sharks. Look, for me, I think the Sharks, they have become this hit and miss rugby league side. They tend to do well at home, but not really away. I think for me in this team, the forward pack is going to be where the battle's won and lost. I think that when you know, I also think the role that the hookers are going to play, Blake Bradley versus Danny Levi. I think that they're going to have a good game or big game. I'm really like the bookend Papali and Tarpany bookends. I think Talakai and Wilton is going to be interesting for them for the Sharks. This is one of those games where I think it's probably just going to come down to some cool heads. It's going to come down to game control. It's going to come down to who can control the game when it matters. And I think having a guy called Nico Hines in your team really helps with that. I've gone to Sharks this week. Griffo, what do you got?
I'm going to go the other way.
Yep.
I'm not confident. I'm interesting. A couple of debuts for guys who've got raps on them for the Sharks in Kale Iro in the centres and Daniel Atkinson. I think it's his debut on the bench. Highly rated players get their chance because the Sharks have got a lot of injuries and some suspensions. Most of those are in the forwards, and it's resulted in Talakai moving back into the second row.
200 game Rapana.
Oh, there you go. Okay. Congratulations,
Yes.
Rapana. I don't like Rapana. Never liked Rapana. I actually can't stand him. It's one of the reasons I don't really... Him and Ricky turned me off the Raiders. But...
have you seen... I know have you seen the Macca's ad?
I think I've heard, yeah.
The funniest part about the Macca's ad was where Ricky doesn't have a whinge. I reckon it's played perfectly. Everyone doesn't get it. They watch it and go, oh, why is that funny? It's like, if you know rugby league, you know why that ad's funny when Ricky does it.
No, that's a good point, Shano. I'm going to stick with the Raiders. I think their form's been very good. I had them in the bottom four at the start of the season. I got that wrong. They've looked very, very good. Even last week in getting beaten, they didn't play badly. So I think with the Sharks, they're missing a lot of players. If the Sharks are to win, it's got to be the speed and skill of their backs that's going to get them home. But I actually don't mind the look of the Raiders backline these days. But anyway, Raiders for me.
Cool. Excellent. So, last game of the round. We have the Parramatta Eels versus the West Tigers. They've got a new song and everything. Look, I suppose the big out for the Eels is massive. It's Mitchell Moses is out. Dylan Brown is in the number 7. Talagi is in at 5'8". Alex Twal is out for the Tigers. Looking at this team and looking at these two teams, it's a massive out for Parramatta. The fact that Mitchell Moses is not there. I think when we look at the teams and how they line up, whilst the Tigers played some very good football last week and actually some entertaining football, it wasn't boring by any stretch. And Api Coruscant was absolutely phenomenal in what he did. I've just got the Eels winning this one for no other reason. I just think they'll be happy to get into the grind with the Tigers. They'd be happy to do that. They know how to win games from there. I think they're going to make the Tigers play their game of football rather than the Tigers own this match. In saying that, I think that's going to be very interesting. I look, when you look at them, I think 1-6-7-9 for the Tigers is probably the best combination in that regard they've had in a long time. Bateman in at the second row. I just think, like I said, I think the Eels are just more than happy to play their game. I think that Bryce Cartwright, Sean Lane, I think their forward pack actually will run all over the Tigers, which is some of the reason why I'm going for the Eels. They're going to get into the grind, and I think where at first this game will seem very close, and the Tigers might even have some ascendancy on the scoreboard, I think by full time Parramatta will win this match. What do you reckon, Griffo?
Shano, I'm interested in this game. It's always a big one when these two teams come together at Bank at Com. I was about to say Bank Western. Now it's been ComBank for a while.
Yeah.
Got my banks wrong. What normally happens though is the Eels usually come out on top. My head is. I was thinking Eels. I've heard that Bryce Cartwright's going to be out. Heard that this afternoon. They said he'll probably be named, but he's going to be out.
I actually
I don't know why they named him, but
it's funny. I heard on one radio station he's out. He's as good as out, and in another radio station he's 50-50 with up to game day. And I'm sort of thinking, well, yeah, I don't know why you'd name him in the second row. He's pretty much out. I reckon you're right. Forgot about that. You probably put a line to him.
I'm sort of thinking I'm going to tip the Tigers, and I'm trying to convince myself not to because they're the Tigers. Para have been really good this year so far, but that was with Moses in there. I'm surprised they didn't go for the mustard, Dejan Arce, or the Colonel, Ethan Sanders. I don't know if there's any injuries there. But they've gone away from the food options and they've gone for the fire option of Blaze Talangi, who had a very good debut last week against Manly in the centres, and they're bringing him in. Apparently, he's played most of his football in the halves.
Yeah, so I've heard he's a very good ball running half, apparently, with a decent short kicking game.
Yeah.
So obviously I've probably just described Dylan Brown.
Yeah. They still got Morgan Harper there, who's back into the centres. For mine, he's like a Jackson Paulo.
Yeah.
Who I see as a player that will get targeted. They should do. I think he's a bit more reliable than Barlow, but whenever I see him in a side, I think there is the weakness. Para a good team, but you take out your best player, and
it's got to have a domino effect, doesn't it?
I think so. And Cartwright's been fantastic this year, and I don't expect he's going to play. It's more about the Tigers and whether they can repeat what they did last week. And that's something I'm not sure of. I'm leaning towards the Tigers, but by the time I actually have to press a button, I'll be surprised if I don't go for Para, because I don't have faith in the Tigers, even though they were brilliant last week. I don't know if I can, back them to win a game. I had them losing last week, obviously, and then they won well, but I'm unsure. And I know your theory, Shane, it's a pretty good one. If you're unsure, you stick with the home team. I may do that, but I really, I'm thinking I'm going to pick Tigers, but when push comes to shove, I'll probably go Para.
Yeah. All right. Well, that does us for round 4 of the NRL Telstra Premiership. Guys, that's our tips. That's our view of what's happening in rugby league so far. I hope your tips go well, whatever they may be. Griffo, thanks again for being a part.
Thank you, Shano. You're doing a very, very good job in the captain's steering the ship.
Thank you, mate. And thank you to our listeners. Thank you for being a part of it. I hope your team wins, unless you go for the Dogs, in which case I hope your team doesn't. But anyway, that's another thing. And enjoy the week of rugby league, and
happy Easter.
Happy Easter.
And 5 days in a row of rugby league, NRL. That's
100%. And as always, on any weekend or at any time, stay safe out there and be good, everyone. Take care. Bye now.
Bye-bye.